Hi everyone, this is Tarun here from Deep Thought. The purpose of this video is to introduce you to Deep Thought, to the selection process here and what this fellowship program is all about. Now, before I go into the details of Deep Thought or selection and so on, I want to pose three very important questions to you. And these are questions which can challenge the way the society functions today. And in case you relate with it, please do discuss with some of your friends because I'm sure conversations can lead to larger societal transformation. In the last 30 years, if you think about it, technology, especially social media, has really changed the way we operate and the way we think as a society. So in some ways in a good way, in some ways in a bad way. But I think conversations and dialogue can go a long way in terms of transforming the society. So before talking about the company, I would like to pose three important questions which create the context for why this company even comes into existence. Question number one is, what is the purpose of education? Do people receive education to get a job? Well, George Polya, one of the greatest mathematics teachers, said that lower aims of education are when education is driven by an agenda of employment or livelihood, where you want to feed yourself and that's why you study. Higher aims of education are when you pursue education for developing your inner resources. You're already born with certain talent. And can you develop those inner resources through education, where you don't just look at skills which can immediately get you some money, but you look at all-round development, which can lay a solid foundation for even better economic development. So the first question which I have is, should the purpose of education just be to get a job? And the second question is, in what kind of a company should a youngster work? Do I work for a company just because the company is able to meet my financial expectations? Or does my value system have to match with the company's value system? If that is the case, do I spend some time trying to understand the thought process of the company, trying to understand the culture of the company, and then go about, choosing to work for a certain company? I mean, what do you mean by value system? The principles which, are non-negotiable, that no matter what happens, you stand by these principles because following these principles is your way of making the world a better place to live in. So does an individual's value system have to match with an organization's value system is a second question which I would like to pose. And the third and probably the most important question is, in a company context, what does learning mean? So if you're doing an internship, I mean, the whole definition of an internship is that you work in a setup, you earn a nominal stipend, and more importantly, you gain an understanding of how things work in the economy, right? So how you create value for an employer. So there, what does learning mean? Does it mean that the employer also has to help you in terms of unlearning and relearning to be able to contribute to the economy? I mean, is that contribution mindset extremely important rather than entitled mindset, where there are a lot of people who feel entitled to a certificate, entitled to a payment, rather than trying to contribute and thus get rewarded for the contribution? So these are three very important questions. And now let me come to Deep Thought. So Deep Thought is a company which is built basis 11 years of research on education. And this research has inspired 179 individuals to invest in the company, including 5 school leaders, 3 parents, and 3 technologists. Now, Deep Thought has changed the idea of education. And the impact of a model has been that we've got 4th class kids in different Socratic dialogues. They presented ideas like lean startup, time value of money, financial strategy, and so on to CTOs and CEOs of different companies, with all the confidence and conceptual clarity which you usually don't see even in MBA students. So how were these school students able to pick up seemingly very technical concepts which many BTech and MBA students struggle with? This fundamentally means that our education model has to change, and Deep Thought is trying to change that by bringing research and holistic education all around the world. I mean, while research and innovation are central to what we do at Deep Thought, I think what defines us is our values-driven approach, where even if I'm a mathematician, I would define certain values for myself. I mean, the need for a proof, the need for elegance in my solution, this would be mathematical values. Or if I'm a software developer, reusability of the code, proper commenting structures? Do I treat them as my personal values, which I uphold because I believe in them, and I feel that it's a purer mode of work if I subscribe to these values versus just me doing it because I have to. So it's kind of a values driven approach where, everybody is trying to make the world a better place to live in. Everybody learns certain values, internalizes those values, and thus grows as a good professional with good practices. So the idea is to have a stronger subject specific aesthetic sense. And these learning values have really transformed youngsters whom we worked with. As I've mentioned in the message, some of our interns within just 2 months of experience have been able to contribute immensely in leadership capacity too. And now Deep Thought is, earlier we used to work extensively in the school education space. So now we've come into a completely different vertical where companies are approaching us and they're asking us to replicate our internship model in their company too. Because when we pick youngsters, we groom youngsters on a strong value system. So the youngsters whom we work with have leadership capabilities, take initiative, can learn things really fast, and have that amazing contribution mindset. So employers have seen that if an intern comes from Deep Thought, that intern is a lot more reliable, and that you can do a lot more with that intern, and it makes sense to take the support of Deep Thought to execute the internship model. Because when an intern comes from Deep Thought, that intern is not just an intern who just sit in a corner like a trainee and do mundane jobs, but the intern can actually work in a collaborative setup, can add a lot of value to the company. So now as a company, we're changing gears. So from the school education model, we're moving into working with youngsters, and we're trying to build a product through which we can groom youngsters and manage them in different companies and ensure that the company culture is more supportive and youngsters don't fall prey to internal politics of the company and can contribute actively. So we are hiring fellows who will help us build these products internally. The various roles for which we are hiring, there is finance role, there is physics role, there is mathematics oriented role. I mean, you see there are various positions which are customer relationship and various positions which are listed. If you go through that web page link which is given to you, deepthought.education/DT selection, you will get details of each role's selection process. But even before that, I would strongly encourage that you go through the videos given to you, go through the documents given to you, the Socratic Dialogue questionnaires, Socratic Dialogue video links also put there. Go through them and understand what Deep Thought has been up to all this while. And on the same YouTube channel, you'll see some of the recent workshop videos too. So go through the workshop videos to understand what is the pedagogy of Deep Thought. Let me very quickly run you through that too. I mean, one of the areas where we're working extensively, where we plan to work extensively, where we've already got some companies signed up, is in terms of software engineers. Today, as you know, software engineers are pretty expensive. Somebody with 2 to 3 years work experience, and a lot of companies want to groom youngsters. It's a win-win solution, right? The youngster gets an opportunity, and the company can, especially the ones without large budgets, can actually do well. So if there are humble youngsters who understand the opportunity and can work with such organizations, I think it's great. But if there's a youngster who's like, no, small companies are idiots and only large companies are the companies to work for, I'm sure we do not want to work with such youngsters. But somebody who's humble, who is looking for an opportunity to work with an employer who may be humbler in terms of resources, but maybe more generous in terms of learning, and maybe more generous in terms of the freedom which he or she can give a youngster. So can we make it possible? So there, how do we compete with all these massive companies like Scalar, which are already working, or Udemy, which are already working on skilling? So we say that they are probably coaching institutes where we are trying to give education. So one of the strong points of Deep Thought is the conceptual foundation. So we don't directly move into the syntax. We use our Socratic pedagogy where we question, and through stories and questioning, we help the learners first get the conceptual clarity around what it is. Once they get the conceptual clarity, only then do we move into the syntax, because syntax is something you can always copy paste from here and there. But what is difficult and what is the challenging thing is to have conceptual clarity in terms of, okay, what is this idea, what is event handling, or what is this API, what is a CRUD operation, and so on, and knowing what to do in which place so that we can plow in the syntax and execute. Likewise, when we work with a finance student, again, the actual technical skill set is quite easy to master, but the conceptual background is relatively challenging. So once you get them to understand basic concepts of finance, which we said we've got even 4th graders to understand that and present it to CEOs, CTOs of certain companies in Socratic Dialogues live on YouTube. So Now we're trying to replicate that with interns too. So first get them to get a conceptual foundation and then introduce them to the technical skills, which they can pick up quite easily. And why is it that Deep Thought is building a new product in this model? Because what we believe is till school level, parents are the decision makers for somebody's education. And unfortunately, parents are not realizing that this education is not good enough until the child turns 30, 35. Because once the child turns 30, 35, the child gets into a mid-career crisis. And then the child realizes, oh my God, why did I only go after ranks, marks, and skills? Why didn't I go for holistic education? People realize only much later. So instead, we thought if we can work with youngsters and give them the right education and let them work in parallel, the learning and doing, that learning, doing, and maturing is the formula of Deep Thought. Learning, doing, and maturing, that helps them unlearn, relearn, and become contributors for the society and economy. But we also understand that once somebody turns 18, the person would not want to depend on parents for his or her education. So the idea of Deep Thought is that we get a company to sponsor their education and the youngster does an internship in the company. So that way the youngster doesn't have to pay for the education, but a company is taking care of the education, the Deep Thought education for the youngster, and the youngster is growing. And hopefully if this product clicks, a lot of people may never have to go to a college after 12th grade because companies would directly hire them for a full-time role after 12th grade, and Deep Thought will give them the education and they can keep working in the company for an internship and they can always do a degree in correspondence. So that would be a beautiful situation to realize, right? Because we know that the world's education system today is broken and what different universities are giving are not directly adding value to students. And Deep Thought is not just a practical education program. We are known for our theoretical depth and for our conceptual clarity. So that way, I think this model can be very, very beautiful in terms of changing how, and the cases, there are cases where we're collaborating with institutions itself, where we're bringing our methodology into the college itself. There's one institution which is getting tied up with us. So once we give our technology to them, what we are giving youngsters while they're doing a job with the company, they can do the same through a college. And when there's college, there's infrastructure available and there's a strong peer group available, and that can help us solve problems. So I'm sure in this short interaction, you would have realized the kind of possibilities which we have in solving this problem by reinventing education. So we are a values-driven company. We believe that we work with stakeholders who share our values of how we think things are to be done. So in case you resonate with these ideas, only then would I recommend that you go ahead with the selection process. Just go through deepthought.education/DT selection to start the selection process. And as I said, in case you relate with one or more questions which I discussed here, please do discuss with your friends, because that's how we can bring a societal change where people think beyond survival and people think of contributing to the economy and people think of growth, where we can be ambitious, we can grow, and we can grow a lot of people along with us. Thanks a lot for listening to me patiently, and I hope you will discuss some of these topics with your friends, and let's make the world a better place. Thank you, everyone.